Hi. I'm parked down the beach here, which you can kind of see, but I thought it's a bit windy, so we'll talk here. But what I really want to talk about is the parts of ourselves that we find difficult to be with, and how our children are trying to get us to those places. Because the parts that we make more unacceptable and that we want to push away within ourselves, we are going to want to do the same thing in our children. And so because it's important to us that we very much practice what we preach here at Nourishing the Mother, I've been doing a little bit of a personal experiment on how I am relating and reacting to my children in times of stress, in times of feeling overwhelmed, to get really honest with myself about what my own patterns are. Because usually it's about doing to get to the other side of making things better. And I don't want you to slow down because we need to keep moving and we've got to push through, and that's just how it is. It's rarely okay for me to make myself sit with presence in sinking into the difficulty and really being with myself in my sense of not okayness, my sense of myself not doing what I think I need to do. And so when I'm not giving myself space and gentleness around where I really struggle, how can we really, as mothers, give that to our children? How can we make okay those parts of themselves that can be difficult? Because we're all children. And this is this reality that Jules and I constantly try to bring ourselves back to, is that we are just as much children as our children are. That in some ways they'll have areas of their lives where they're more developed than we are, and we'll have areas where we're more developed than they are, and it is a 50-50 relationship of learning and growing, and of constantly finding the dance between that being a growth, journey of pushing, and a journey of being, and a journey of presence, and a journey of really making okay the parts that we feel like an infant still in, the parts that we feel like we're not good enough in ourselves. Because the more that we can sit with those, the more that we are giving our children permission to sit with those parts of themselves. Because we live in a culture which will very quickly tell us all the things that we need to get better at or improve on, and we use this mirror of our social media world to constantly feel our sense of not enoughness. But how can we make that sense of not enoughness part of our whole, part of something that's still meaningful even in what might feel like a void for us? So I've really been sitting with that, and sitting with my own shorter fuse when I know I'm in times of more stress, and how to sink in and melt into that, and melt into not needing to have the answers for a way out, and simply just expanding my own capacity to be with those feelings. We talk about this idea of this window of tolerance and widening that, and that our children are always bringing us invitations to widen that window of tolerance so that we can repattern our own experience with discomfort, and therefore show up for more of what life is bringing us, for more of those octaves of experience that life offers us. And it's certainly something that we talk about a lot in aligned parenting, is this, let's throw away the books that say the right way to parent and the ideal way to listen to all of your children's feelings, and the way that we should quickly get through all of our own baggage, and we're never going to be done. We're never ever going to be done. And if we were supposed to be done with all of our baggage and with all of our less than ideal stuff we're going to hand on to our kids, then it wouldn't be a relationship of growth, because through growth is that pain. Through growth is facing those parts of ourselves that are difficult. So we don't want to do away with those, we want to open up to those, and it's about having a practice of leaning in and feeling held by other people doing that with us. And, you know, Jules and I get just as much as I think everybody else does in aligned parenting and all of our groups, because we are called to those spaces too. As like last night, Jules was on the panel at our film event, I Am a Girl. And it was just so fun. Like, I think we could have spent ages, because it could have easily turned into another podcast, because there are so many ways to take that conversation. But, you know, there was a really, really difficult scene in that film, and a bit of a theme around mothers owning their children, or having this sense of their love for their children being conditional. You know, there was an example of a Cambodian woman who sold her daughter's virginity at the age of 12, you know, and her daughter would go out and be a sex worker essentially on the streets of Cambodia to pay for her mother's medical, you know, costs and medicines. And we recoil at that kind of, you know, how could a mother do that? But yet, you know, what are the other ways in which, you know, in more insidious ways, is our mothering conditional? You know, we have these ideals of what our family values are, and I think if our children challenge those enough, we're going to want to push them away because they don't fit our sense of identity of self, or they don't fit our idea of who we think that they should be. And I think it's about making that more acceptable, because the mothering journey can be so brutal in terms of facing that mirror of what we don't want to see. You know, Jules gave the example of, you know, she had these hippie ideals of her son going to, you know, a Steiner school and, you know, wearing, you know, tie-dye and being this free spirit. You know, and she realised that even that was her idealism, that was what she wanted for him, but that's not who he was. You know, he was the kid who loved the black and white, who really enjoyed mainstream, who was competitive, was all of the things that were the antithesis of what she thought she wanted to create. I mean, that's the ultimate in humility, is when our kids are calling us to show up for who they are, not who we think that they should be, or who we think we should be on this mothering journey. And so, you know, having that humility when we're facing what our children bring us, you know, can be so excruciating, but yet when we get ourselves to the other side of it, it's so rich, because it's a shedding and breaking open of identity, which is ultimately a creation of our own based on what we know, what voids and values we have, and those are so transient. We can look at ourselves 5-10 years ago and see how different we were and label that as wrong, or label ourselves now as more evolved, but in another 5 or 10 years we're going to be different again. And so, you know, who is right? And I think it's really beautiful to look at the mother-child relationship and open up to, you know, what are our children trying to reveal to us to help us get more authentic, so that they can see what that looks like. And that won't always be, you know, how it is, you know, in these idealistic parenting books. You know, it's going to be sometimes messy, and it's going to be, you know, developing a relationship of repair and connection, and continually coming back to that, rather than striving for some kind of, you know, unrealistic, you know, pinnacle of connectedness, which we get there and then we break apart again, and then we get there again, and how we come back into connection and how we integrate, that is what we want to teach our children, and not trying to be this one-sided parent. So those are my musings for today. Hi Ingrid, thanks for saying hi. Thanks to those who are watching, and I wonder what you take away when you think of, you know, what parts of yourself are, you know, okay for your children to see, and what parts do you resist? Hi Kat. Because I think that our children are taking us all the time to the parts that we want to resist in ourselves, because they're giving us a gift. They're shining the light on the parts that we know we need to bring light to, but we are resisting as well. So I wonder what that is for you, and maybe we can hash that out a little bit in the comments, because it's certainly a place that we go in our private groups with aligned parenting, and it's what came up at our retreat last weekend. You know, was this idea that, you know, I don't want to do to my kids what was done to me, but until we see the richness of what was done to us in terms of how that helped us to grow, much like Julie's video yesterday or Monday, until we find the richness of that, we're going to keep running from that and running into that in various ways until we can see how it served us. And so go gently, but really try to open that heart space to the wisdom that our kids are offering us. Hope you have a gorgeous day.